except for Doksan on Friday morning and a trustees meeting and potluck supper on Sunday or Saturday? Sunday is our last offering for this on period, the last question period. We've got the answers. It's better just to call it question period. Whether or not there are answers is up to you. Except for Doksan on Friday morning and a trustees meeting and potluck supper on Sunday or Saturday? Sunday is our last offering for this on period, the last question period. We've got the answers. It's better just to call it question period. Whether or not there are answers is up to you. For those of you who've never been to a question and answer period, please bring up anything that troubles you. If you don't come to Doksan yet, you can ask about practice on the mat or in daily life. What does Zen work in daily life? Specifically, if you have a problem situation or anything that bothers you with regard to the way we work in this center, or rumors you've heard about us. At times one discusses this endlessly among friends, and here's a chance that you can ask me directly, and maybe we can together shed some light on things, or maybe end up in greater confusion. Don't worry about how to phrase or formulate a question. If you need to ask it, the formulation comes on its own. Also, any of you, if you wish to make comments on what is said or pursue a question further, it's perfectly all right, or just to make a comment which is not a question, that's all right too. You don't need to raise your hands.
Not too long ago, in it's either a Teisho or a question period, you mentioned very briefly about illnesses and diseases, or just sicknesses, I guess, related to sitting to come up. This was mentioned very briefly. I was wondering if you could go into it a little bit more. And what examples or anything at the Zen Center you have come across as far as other people are concerned?
Illnesses that are connected with sitting?
Yeah.
I don't recall mentioning this.
Was it about Hakuin? Is that what you're thinking of? Towards you. Well, that was a long time.
Aching back. Aching back, the knees.
I thought maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was phrased wrong. I just thought you had mentioned that as one sits, sometimes certain physical problems develop related to sitting.
I did read during the last session about the life of Bankei, who was sort of overdoing it. Did you hear that, Teisho? No, you didn't hear that, Teisho. That was not... You didn't. broadcast that. There was no Buddha hall. Does that ring a bell though? Someone who was sitting so much and wasn't eating anymore and sleeping anymore and overdoing it and found himself on the verge of dying. That was in the 17th century. I don't think you're referring to that. Are you?
No, maybe
people get all kinds of illnesses. Yes?
Maybe he's referring to the Zen sickness that Hakuin mentioned, maybe? Is that what you're thinking?
Hakuin was also overdoing it.
One
Got
time
himself an
someone
illness hard to cure and went to see a Taoist hermit. We told him to just sort of awaken some sensitivity here and his hara
I think it's related.
energy. People have had all kinds of illnesses who practice Zen, but people who don't practice Zen also have all kinds of illnesses. I'm really no expert on this. Are you concerned? Are you worried about it?
Well, what I had, I guess I must have misunderstood what you were saying. I was just under the impression that sometimes, for lack of a better term, your sitting progresses. I don't like to use that.
I don't talk in those terms. I mean, as you're sitting?
As you, during the period of your sitting, perhaps as the years go on, I thought that you had referred to the fact that sometimes this relates to some types of illnesses or something.
Does it worry you?
Yeah.
That as you will add another year of sitting or so, something may happen to you? I wouldn't worry. And if something comes up, if there is illness, then you deal with it. You can't deal with it in anticipation. You may never get ill from sitting. It also depends on how you sit, whether there's a tremendous compulsion in your sitting, or pushing yourself, pushing against yourself, comparing yourself to other people. This creates all kinds of dis-ease in the mind. And when there's dis-ease in the mind, there's dis-ease in the body. So what we're trying to do here is to become aware of how we sit, whether there is this compulsion, whether there is competitiveness or ambition to attain something, so that there is no conflict with that this sitting brings about. If there's no conflict in your sitting, then why should there be illness? I wouldn't worry about anything that isn't there.
If I can just say something.
Yes.
Sometimes what we think of as illness is really the body releasing. You might call them dis-ease patterns. They come to the physical body last. And as you're sitting, let's just say that sometimes, since the body and the mind aren't two, as things clear in the mind, they clear in the body too. So sometimes there can be a release, and it might appear to be what we normally think of as illness, but it's really like a cleansing of the body-mind.
Certainly, as you sit, if you sit with great openness and a mind that questions, you do come in touch with things you may have never come in touch with before. Fears, sadness. even despair or sorrow. Then how does one meet that? Or does one meet it, or does one try to run away from it? Or is there a face-to-face meeting with that? Not two faces, just that. But that's, well, I wouldn't call it illness. This is part of you which has never been contacted. Always sort of kept under a lid. In what we call the unconscious mind. To be in touch with this and live through this is to become whole.
Talked about, if I might just ask one more question, the dis-ease in your sitting, not the ambition, I suppose. Is this something that just works its way out of that, so you can sit with a free mind, or how does this develop?
To sit with a free mind, one has to realize what is one's unfreedom. What is it that binds one and ties one up into knots? And such realization of it is free from judgment and condemnation is freeing. So rather than to have ideals of how one should sit, or that one should be this way or that way, or one with one sitting, to see how divided one is, and what is the division, what comes in between, what is it that one doesn't want to face, what is it that drives one so irrationally. You may not be able to answer this, but you may have a feeling of it. So if there's an openness and a questioning, what is it? Maybe it will reveal itself. You certainly feel when there's anger, you feel when there's fear, don't you? It's an awareness of this. So how does one deal with it or meet that? Is there immediately a brushing over, or trying to think of something else, a turning away? What does one really question openly, what is this? Let me face it, let me be in touch with it. It's me. I need to say that. This is verbalizing something so we can talk about it. And of course, if you have an idea of yourself as being a person who never is in a rage, who never gets angry, who never resents, then all of a sudden facing that there is anger and rage is a very discomforting thing. Why? Because there is a standard to which you wish to live up to, an ideal image. So, can one see what causes conflict and discomfort? Having all these images of oneself which do not correspond to what's actually going on inside. Somebody chides you or ignores you or doesn't appreciate what you're doing, walls you out or whatever, then what's happening inside? How do you respond to whatever comes up? Is there is there a penetrating awareness of it, or does it say, no, I'm not like that, or I mustn't be like this, I just totally ignore the whole thing after it's over, to preserve the image of oneself.
Excuse me. I got a job recently that I wanted quite a while, but it's really different than anything I've been doing. It's a big restaurant, big kitchen, lots of new things to learn. Different type of people that I'm used to working with me. Something in me knows that this is something that I need to do right now. But where the conflict is it seems so different than everything I've learned. Not everything, but the things that I've learned at the center the last 6 or whatever years, many years that it's been. And I have a lot of fear of losing something that I had, some kind of standards, I guess. So I'm not completely easy in my mind about this new job. Although, there is something that says, do it, this is right for you. For now, try this out. There's still all these ideas about Zen training, what that's meant to me in the past.
But your parents may come and eat in that restaurant, right?
Right.
What is Zen training? Is there such a thing? Of course, one can pick up any place, the Zen Center or any place, ideas of how one ought to act. But does true action come out of ideas? Why do you say you feel that you need to work there? What makes you say that?
I felt so narrow, so intolerant, so separated from so many other people. Getting into a real narrow kind of life.
So can you forget not just the last 6 years, but all that you've learned about anything, and just look and listen and work there and be open and see the people and be with them without any ideals, one way or the other, but look at them and look at yourself and listen to them. And any ideas you have how anything should be, or how anybody should be, will prevent this direct contact, this direct relationship. What are you afraid of losing? Other than ideas. You haven't lost those yet. What is there to be lost? What did you have? A certain way of acting? Was that free? Unself-conscious? Spontaneous?
But what happens when we actually put ourselves in a particular situation to work on something because we know it's a hang-up or we know it's work we have to do? Should you try and seek out situations, or do you just live and it's a real question sometimes? And for me, just right now I'm deciding where to work, at the Zen Center or here, because to go to the Zen Center would mean I'm confronting all the fears and all, going through all these things that I hate within myself. I hate to sit and feel insecure and feel like a shit, but by not sitting there, I feel like I'm running away and I'm not dealing with that. So there's always seems like there's this tendency, this idea, you've got to go. You've got to seek out situations to help you work on yourself, because...
Aren't we just right in the midst of them all the time? Of course, if you feel that you have to face sitting someplace where you feel like what did you say, like a shit? Are you free there? Are you free to face that?
What happens if you leave and you don't sit in a situation where you feel like a shit? Maybe
you're not a shit.
It sounds like the same type of thing she was talking about, though, where you just there's this real thing inside of me to go.
Then go.
No, I'm not. What is this? Why does everybody have to go and find the place that makes it difficult just so you can get beyond the difficulty?
I don't know whether everybody does that. I think the difficulties aren't in the place. Well, they're there too. But you can sit right in the countryside and question and come upon all the conflicts and problems of your own life. The sorrow, the sadness, the wanting, the yearning, the fearing, all the memories, the nostalgias, all the illusions. So where can you face them best? In what environment? But if you, for some reason that is not known to you, if you're really compelled to go to the center and sit there, then do it by all means. And also observe the consequences.
That's not the particular issue. It's just this whole thing of why do we always have to? Why do you? Just what she was describing. Why do we go to find external situations to work?
Are you saying why do we feel that we have to do these things? I mean, it's sort of to kind of live up to an expectation or something. Then you're questioning that you have to do that.
Sometimes I remember once, Paul coming home from work and saying, how can I keep doing this job while something about he spends his whole day trying to be more clever than the next guy so he can keep them in, so he can win, all this type of thing. And it's like, but maybe that's the work he has to do. Why do we end up in particular circumstances, or why do we actively seek out things to make, should we be concerned with the external situation in which we work because it may help us work on something inside ourselves that needs working, or should we just try and, should there be any looking at where we're working and with whom to try and work through these things within us? How do you decide? Should you try and go where it's comfortable and easy and you feel free and
where is it that way?
At home compared to a job in a way, because I don't. Well, that's not at all true. Who's worse than myself? I guess it's not. Yeah.
I don't know if I have a feeling for what you're saying, but I found myself in situations where I've done that kind of pushing, where I've said, well, this is something, obviously if it's creating so much disharmony in me, it's something I need to face, and so I'll go and I'll run right into it head first, and I'll face it once and for all, and a lot of times all that does is create more tension. And I remember Roshi saying one time, if you step into a fire and you get burned, and every time you step into that place you get burned, well, maybe you just should quit walking into this fire, or it was a briar patch or something, some painful kind of place. And it seems to me there's real wisdom in finding a place of harmony to be, and someone who fights all the time.
Aren't there too many shoulds here?
What did you say?
Aren't there too many shoulds here? Isn't this being too abstract? I mean,
one always gets into trouble in thinking, why do other people do such and such? We don't know why other people do what they do. It's very difficult to tell unless one is that person. What for oneself, can one discern when there are rationalizations for guilt feelings about, or fear of leaving a place, guilt feelings about leaving a place, maybe that needs to be faced rather than keeping going to this place. Everything is right there, where you're looking, and you really need to look.
I find myself sometimes trying to put questions into strata and pretend that one question is more fundamental and more important than another. And it seems, Mary, that what's happening with you around work is just that questions are coming up. It seems as if the practice is to question, and like Toni said, there aren't any answers here. So if the question that comes up over and over again is, where should I work, or why am I working here? It must be an important question to keep coming up like that for you. It's a question.
Several times in the past, related to working with children, and I'm not married, I don't have children myself, but the question or doubt comes up each time is when talking about, well, I was a child at one time, probably still in many ways still am a child, but in relating with the child, give the child, and try to give the child space, and when relating, make it more introspective than all of a sudden, just doing something, some kind of thing with the child. But it's just the question kept on coming up is, I know we many times probably say no too much to a child, but in there at times, a lot of times, one needs to say no to a child.
Are you asking this theoretically?
No.
Are you working with children?
No.
Some people have elaborate stereo and hi-fi equipment in their living room, and the little child starts walking, and all it's seen up till then from the high chair, from the crib or whatever container it was in, was that the adults go there and manipulate the knobs. And now he can walk. And this is where he goes. And the parents say, no. You slap his hand. He's got to learn. He's got to learn that he can't do that. We were discussing this the other day with someone who said they taught their children how to manipulate. A little 2-year-old already can tune and tune in and out and manipulate all these knobs. Other parents slap their children's finger for fear that this precious equipment may be hurt or damaged, which means the equipment is more valuable than the child, or more important in some way. So, all right, if a child is headed for a hot stove, you don't even have to say no, you just remove the child, although you're not there always. And the child may touch that hot stove and may never touch that hot stove again without you ever having said no. It all depends on how it is done. Whether it is done with anger or just very factually explaining. Say, well, a little child can understand. They can understand a lot. They can particularly understand vibrations in the voice, whether they're angry or whether they're factual. Obviously, prevent a child from doing harm to itself or another child or another person. But how is it done? That's the important thing. It depends on what is triggered in the adult when this happens. Whether all the punishment that once descended upon oneself is now released and is passed on to the child. Can one observe this in a flash? That it's not necessary to punish or to yell. That other ways are possible, which is not easy. It takes tremendous amount of attention and awareness and wanting to find out what impels one when one says no to a child. How one says no. It's not a question of should a child do anything. Obviously, there are many dangerous things that a child does not understand and must be protected from. But how? Is it in an intelligent way? Does it happen in an intelligent way? So there are no heavy wounds occurred, heavy scars left, but understanding.
It came to me that one can share if going out in the street, a person, a child be hurt and hit or so. I guess you can share with the child. I'm afraid that you'll be hurt if you go out there. So I don't work directly with children, but I see a lot in my job. Children, parents coming in with their children. No, this. So at times you can share. I guess the child can misunderstand. You can be afraid of them, afraid for them getting hurt. And you can share that with them and say, no. And they don't understand. They only hear that no, and you're not sharing your feelings with the child. What?
I learned this word in school, and I just want to share it. It's a word that made me feel afraid. It's called groupthink. It's a funny word, but what it means is a group, and we can only think this way, and if you step out of line, then you're an outcast, and these things happen in groups, and I'm afraid that it'll happen in this group, and I think, I need to, I think we have an awareness of that in this group, or whatever you want to call it. But I just want to share my fears, and I think I'm not the only one who has that fear. I don't think
that there will be conformity to some kind of a line.
Conformity. When my brother died, I felt tremendous just awareness that there's people all over that are just very open, and we can relate to so many different people, and they don't have to be like us, and this is something that I'm learning, and just being open to just anyone, not just Zen people. And it bothers me.
The danger.
The danger that
this can happen in any group where people sort of stick with each other all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
We judge others. I do. I know I do. I wasn't able to be close to my brother because of that. And it's a tremendous hurt. Because he wasn't, he was outside.
Yeah, he wasn't into this thing.
I was outside. That's what it was. Really.
Yeah.
And this is something that I feel is real strong here. Or was strong in me. And I just want to bring that up.
Well, bring it up again if you notice something. Sound the warning signal. Or point it out. Right on the spot, where you notice it. Point it out to the person or to the people. So this can be looked at.
It's it's almost a part of human nature to try to be maybe in a group.
It's a very protective thing, and feel secure. And this is what we are forever looking for: a secure, sheltered place. Familiar.
Away from people who are different than us.
It's a threat.
Who might hurt us.
Yeah. And yet people are not different from us. We think they are.
Toni, when I first became a member of the Zen Center, it was after having read a fair number of books and stuff by people like Alan Watts and Krishnamurti, and for a while I kind of looked askance at people who were into kind of specific religious groups, because it seemed like what those people I had read had been saying was you're just kind of getting hung up with forms or something like that, and with systems. And then I remember finally coming to Rochester and going to a workshop and stuff and getting involved with the center. And it was a tremendous relief to me. I thought, God, this is really cool, because it seemed like someone had finally set up a system and set up forms that sort of, I don't know, define things or laid down a certain path that one could, well, have a certain amount of confidence in and follow and feel that, oh, I don't know, before it always seemed like everybody he had this opinion and she had that opinion, and they just went on and on and on, and there was just like no end to everybody having their opinions about what you should and shouldn't do, okay? And of course now this whole, well, there was a certain amount of confidence in that relief in being able to sort of follow a path that one had confidence in. And now I just wonder whether all that kind of confidence was just kind of trying to cling to forms and being afraid that there may not be any set path that one can ever follow. You know, there's that feeling on one hand, but on the other hand, I wonder, you know, this so-called path that one tried to did follow may be very worthwhile. And there's a great deal of confusion in that.
Was it worthwhile for you?
I don't know. Of course, I always made a lot of judgments about, you know, what I did or did not. You know, what happened to me, you know, in practice. I really don't know.
So what is your question now?
Well, it seems like there's a danger in sort of following a path, and there seems to be there can be a danger in kind of telling yourself, well, I'm not going to follow any path, and when they disregard something that's very worthwhile.
What do you need to do in this life? Well, that may already be too abstract way of putting it. What do you need to do?
Seems like you need to find out the source of all this pain and confusion.
Can anybody do this for you?
No. Of course, people feel that pain and confusion, and they attempt to do something about it in many different ways. You know, some people take drugs, and probably that isn't a very effective way to deal with it.
Are you doing anything against your will now, or were you before?
Not sure exactly what that would mean, but I don't think so.
What's will?
Yeah. Are you doing what you want to do?
I don't really know. I'm trying to do what feels right, but I don't know if that's what I want to do.
What else is there, Andy?
What else is there?
But to do what you feel is right. You know, so it relates to something Mary was saying before. The people who spent a long time at the Zen Center trying to become strong Zen people. Instead of being with their fear, and being with what they're feeling. And if you don't belong to a group for a while, some of that original anxiety that brought one here comes back up. It's very surprising. You find yourself sort of out in the cold.
Yes, very true.
Maybe that's the place, maybe that's what's really going on, what's really going on, and trying to fill it all up with finding a tough place to work, or all these other things. Doesn't sound like you're confused at all. Sounds like you see some things pretty clearly. Which includes that there are some fine people working over in Arnold Park. Some fine people working here.
What about the rest of it?
That's the terms in which it was put, though. The conflict is placed in that. Of course, it's the whole world. But it's just a question. You find people everywhere. Maybe what and we could follow those inclinations of the heart instead of
Tony, why I asked my question about my job is not, I didn't go there because I wanted a hard place to work. But now that I'm there, it's like, I don't know what Zen is anymore. All those things that I had for so long aren't there. I don't believe them. I don't believe them. Not reading and not listening to the radio, and maybe I'm crazy and that wasn't supposed to be there, but that's what I picked up. And keeping your eyes down and keeping your attention here, and not doing this, not doing that. That's all that's so confused for me with that word practice and with that word Zen. And I hear people talk, about, well, the practice is this, or the practice is that, or my practice is such and such, and I can't relate to that at all. So it's like, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know what makes me different than anybody else, but, that's also something that I always felt, that Zen made you different. So...
Are you different from anybody else? Do you really understand and realize that you're not different? It's a tremendous realization.
That's why I wanted to work in the real world, quote unquote.
And Zen people too have fears and hang-ups and escapes and hopes and illusions. Zen people meaning people who consider themselves members of a center. I don't mean just this word members. We're using it ourselves.
But what are we doing that's different than somebody who I work next to at the restaurant that I sense somehow is working on themselves in some way?
Find out, sit down and talk to them. If you really want to find out, what do people do? What do you do? So in creating illusions, because one doesn't face fears, illusions in one place or illusions in another place. what Pat was saying, is one capable of being out in the cold alone. Alone meaning without all kinds of comforting illusions and thoughts and hopes and faiths and beliefs. That's what alone means. Just facing what's going on inside and out. As it's going on, it's all there. Without any standards, shoulds or shouldn'ts. But does one just leave one field of comfort and illusion for another? Or wherever one is, when one faces that, when one detects it, when one looks at it, and one doesn't seek refuge in all these comforting thoughts. It's being out in the cold.
What does it mean not to escape? What does it mean not to escape?
Do you know what it means to escape?
I escape. I know what means escape.
Yeah, well then you do that.
How to not escape? Where is the place to not to escape? I don't understand.
Right where you are. Really not knowing where you are. Not knowing who you are. Which is a pretty frightening thing. Not knowing what the next moment or the next year will bring. And facing the fear of that, the uncertainty, directly. Without creating illusions. You can tell that, you can notice that. If you can't, why not? What's in the way? What's the fog? The screen. It seems to sort of envelop one. When you sit questioning, talking about that particular instance, you can tell when you're escaping, when you don't want to face something. It's too painful, too frightening.
Is comfort always an illusion?
Comfort is comfort.
Seems like sometimes someone gives us a hug or you have a drink of something warm and then you're ready to go out again and face things.
So are you asking it, is it wrong to hug someone or to drink something warm?
No,
Is it?
It's just that so much now I hear you equate any kind of comfort and illusion always seem to go together, as though comfort was necessarily something to be seen through and gone through, and maybe comfort is something that you take a sip and then you go out again.
Why go out?
Where do you look for another sip when it's not there?
Maybe
Is it really comfort if you're pursuing comfort? Is it really comforting anymore?
Where is there to go out to?
Or does comfort just happen, the sip happens, and then there's the cold wind outside where you're shoveling the snow again?
You know, I'm
teaching in a big city high school, and there are kids swearing all day and beating each other with baseball bats, and it's comforting to come home and be in a quiet room, and then I can get up the next morning and go there again. I couldn't take it 24 hours a day.
I had to go to a pharmacy in Bulls Hill, which is over by St. Mary's in a very rough neighborhood, to get some drugs for a patient. And I was really terrified going into the pharmacy, and I wasn't sure what was going on. But what seemed, when I relaxed a little and looked at what was happening, that I was not the only one who was afraid, that was a shared experience. Many of the people who were there were also afraid. And maybe I was just partly catching the fear from them. But it was also just that there are certain situations where to be afraid is easier than to just look and see what's happening. Here's an old habit. I went to a bus station on a trip to Cleveland, and then went walking around Buffalo. I was amazed at how afraid I was. I just hadn't realized that so much fear could come up so easily when all my supports were gone. You know, familiar neighborhood was gone. I didn't have any refuges. And yet, when I started paying attention to what ideas were coming up, what images were coming up, around the corner there was somebody with a baseball bat or whatever, it was a little better.
But isn't there this feeling that comfort is a bad thing or something to be shunned in favor of stressful situations? When one deals with very young children, it seems to me that when those children are comfortable, when they're free of fear, remarkable things take place, just incredible things take place that don't happen if they're fearful and stressed. And in some ways the same thing is true of us, or of me. That when one works in a situation of discomfort, why the discomfort? Well, there's an expectation to be met. Very half-hearted working. It's nothing going on. But when that expectation is gone, when one sees one does not need to meet expectations or does not need to find stress, one's just absorbed in what's going on. It's just absolutely fascinating. And it's very comfortable.
If I end up out in the cold, the door slams behind me, I'm going to try and get inside and get warm as fast as I can, or I'm going to try and find a coat. But what I'm seeing is that also in my job situations, and so many things that I do in my life, I say, gee, I think it's time to go out in the cold now. And I leave my coat in the closet, and I walk out into the middle of the cold. And I say, gee, now here I am in the cold. What's it like? What am I learning from this experience? How am I growing? And, Janet, I think I feel the same way. I feel like I put myself out into the cold because I was supposed to learn something out there. That's silly. When I'm out in the cold, I try and get warm. And I think that in putting myself into all kinds of unpleasant job situations, I carried my expectations out with me into the cold, about how I was supposed to learn about the cold, and the dark, and the scariness.
But you do learn. You're there, right? So you learn it.
Yeah, I learn it, but I'm carrying all kinds of stuff around with me that really, if that's the experience that I was trying to create for myself, I did a damn lousy job, because I brought with me all kinds of things that are obstructions to really getting at the root of it.
Are you talking about your experience, or are you talking about hers?
Talking about my experience.
Okay.
I don't know what your experience is, but it sounds like maybe you're into some of the same things.
Do we really want to find out about the cold? Or do we want to think about ourselves as someone we'll find out about the cold.
Exactly.
I read a book this winter about some people who spent about a year and a half in open boats in Antarctica. It was during the worst cold snap in January, and I had to walk from Meg Street to my car. Well, those people who went to Antarctica wanted to find out something down there. And they really did. And they wanted to, and they went and did it. And we're not doing that. Maybe to get in touch with what one wants to do. What if one wants to be in a warm, cozy place? Why not find out what one feels? If one wants that, why not go get it? If you feel a need to do something, do it. And what you need to learn will be there.
Maybe that's the problem, that we don't really want, that we think that we want, but we don't really, we have this resistance to really experience what we want, what we don't really want.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found this. That maybe that I do maybe what I think that I should do, that I should want, and then I feel this strong resistance, and it doesn't work any direction. I am not moving in any direction.
But there's some kind of fear that if we go and find this cozy, warm place that everybody wants, that we're never going to get over our fear of the cold because we won't really have faced it. I mean, how can you experience the cold, the Antarctic cold, in Hawaii? You just can't. There's something inside of me. It's like I want to get over all my fears, so I go and I try and find a situation where I can feel them to get beyond them. I mean, it's just...
Does it work?
Not yet.
Maybe
How do you know that
How do you know that if you go into, for instance, a cozy, warm place, that maybe that won't work?
To get over the fear of the cold?
Yeah.
Maybe it will. I just haven't tried it, I guess.
But where's this cozy, warm place we want to go find? You know, I know.
No, I'm using it as a metaphor.
No, I know. Let me finish what I'm thinking, though. Is that I know a lot of times if I'm feeling really insecure, I want to look to somebody who's going to say, "Hey, I love you. Hey, I'm going to put my arm around you and make you feel better." And that's what I think I want. I want that cozy warmth. But sometimes I find that even when I've got that, what I really need is to look harder at what was there to begin with, which may be really difficult to face, it may be really painful, but it's the only way out of what I really felt in the first place, which was that insecurity, and that was to look at it and not to be comforted out of it. And so maybe it's not just to seek comfort or to seek what we want or to seek what we need, but to just really look at it all and try to, well, I don't know, I think the only phrase I've ever heard that made any sense to me was you do what you need to do.
You know what? Sometimes you might need that comfort, and then you find out that it's really, you need something more to, you need to look within more. But what's wrong with feeling the comfort too?
I understand. I mean, I hear you. All I'm trying to do is share that sometimes there is an illusion to that comfort.
Right, but you'll see it.
But you feel it then.
The illusion is not really seeing what it was you were feeling to begin with, and trying to look outside trying to look for, to be handed something that's going to take care of that for you.
Yeah, but the illusion isn't the comfort. The comfort's the comfort. And you're overlaying.
Yeah.
It's something else.
Right.
Real enough.
we've repeated here a lot of times, endless blind passions I vow to uproot, in a way that in turn says, not to enjoy life, not to really feel, these passions, these things that we enjoy or so, or comforts or whatever. You're not supposed to feel that. You're supposed to look through that and not enjoy life. It seems like a lot of people have been saying that, and I wonder if we've been repeating that so many times, and some similar stuff in Zen literature and chants, that in many ways it says, not to enjoy life, but to see the pain or so. But there are some enjoyable things in life, but
why are we all setting up this dichotomy of cold and warm and enjoy and not enjoy? Just live your life. Jeremy says, well, it's cold outside, I need to feel the cold, so I leave my jacket in the closet and go out to the cold, and it's cold, and all I'm doing out there is trying to be warm, and someone else said, how can you really experience Antarctica when you're in Hawaii? Why do you want to experience Antarctica when you're in Hawaii? Just be in Hawaii.
Yeah, but we are always we are always teaching that there are always changes, that maybe we will snow on Hawaii.
And then you meet that.
It's 9:35.
9:35.
Some people probably have to leave. Okay. There's some announcements.